I'm Jaime Levine, Executive Director of Elder Law and Advocacy. Today we have Chris Groshong. Did I pronounce that correctly? Chris Groshong. Yeah. In our studio. So thank you very much for being here. We work on elder abuse cases a lot, and in particular financial elder abuse cases. Recently, cryptocurrency has become one of the avenues that scammers are using in order to transfer funds internationally, instantly, and a lot of people think it's actually impossible to recover anything when it comes to cryptocurrency. So we have an expert today in the studio. So I'm going to do a little introduction about Chris, and then Chris can fill us in terms of his background. Chris is a certified fraud investigator with more than a decade of experience in the cryptocurrency industry, specializing in crypto fraud investigations of all kinds, including scam victims. So you also investigate, for example, in divorce cases. There are situations where people are trying to hide assets. I know that's hard to believe, but cryptocurrency seems like a very hard thing to discover. So that's what we're going to talk about. Chris is the founder of the nonprofit Crypto Recovery Alliance, which works to help individuals and families impacted by cryptocurrency scams pursue accountability and potential recovery. Chris also advocates for stronger consumer protections in the rapidly evolving digital asset space. Chris, thank you very much for being here today. We're really excited to talk to you about this.
Thanks for having me, Jamie.
Yeah. I said a little bit about your background, but can you give us a little more? I know you've been working in this space for many, many years, and you have a ton of experience. So tell us about your journey. Like, where did you start? How did you get here? And what are you looking at in terms of where you're going?
Yeah, so my background, I don't have a deep technical background. So people think, oh, if you got into crypto, you must be like into computer science or, cryptography or something like that. But honestly, I looked at it from the standpoint of finance, right? Now, I don't have a finance background either. But my mission, I have a degree in genetics.
Right.
Right. And actually, people are like, oh, I can kind of see some parallels because, DNA is kind of puzzle-like and built linearly, and so is the blockchain. And so there are some similarities in that regard. But what really hooked me was I was fascinated by a new technology that nobody really else had an advantage over me, right? Like, it was 2013 when I was really diving in and learning about Bitcoin, mostly just on the internet. I was, there were still a lot of these meet-in-person Craigslist type scams, buy tickets and then the guy would just rob you, or sell something and you would get robbed. And so there was only two ways to buy Bitcoin back then, right? It was either wire your money to Japan, to an exchange called Mt. Gox, which was the largest at the time and went insolvent. And that's actually what I did, right? Or it was meet somebody in person. Well, when I sent the money to Japan, I had never wired money internationally before. I sent $500. It cost me $50. I was like, oh, that's expensive. And it took 5 days. And I'm watching the price go from about $80 to $240. And I'm kind of like, come on, when's my money going to show up? As soon as it shows up, I smash the button, buy, and in a day and a half, the price went back down to like $100 or $120.
Right.
So I learned this really valuable lesson about how expensive it is to move money, how slow it is, and why you need your money where it needs to be when you need it to be there. And Bitcoin doesn't sleep 24/7. So had my money got there in like how Bitcoin works or crypto works, I probably would have had 3 times as many Bitcoin than I would have, right? So all these lessons were I learned within a week. And that's like part of like the light bulb went off and said, oh, this is the future of money. And once I realized you couldn't turn the technology off, meaning, of course, people are going to make it illegal in certain places, but they limit access to the internet in a lot of countries. Doesn't mean the internet doesn't exist there at all, or other places. And I was like, oh, it'll be the same thing. And so I gambled on that future, and I just put myself in a position to continually learn as if I was going back to school, because there was no place to get a degree in crypto. You just had to immerse yourself. And so that's what I did. And through a few failed business models, I ended up eventually doing blockchain forensics and investigations. Mm-hmm. And that came from actually helping train law enforcement. So I had a class certified by the state of California through Peace Officer Standardized Training. And I couldn't get anybody to take the class. But I had built relationships with some blockchain forensics firms, and I was having access to their tools. Then they started referring victims to me. And I was like, what are they doing? I don't even have a business model for this. So then I started thinking about it, because the number one rule that they teach you in crypto and Bitcoin right away is once you send a transaction, it's irreversible. All right? And that's the biggest thing. So when you send it, it's gone. If you send it to the wrong address, it's not recoverable unless you happen to know who controls that address and ask them to send it back. So initially I was telling people, sorry, there's not much I can do to help you. But what I realized is this is more about the understanding of what happened to my money than exactly can you just get it back. Mm-hmm. I don't know where I sent it, and I thought I sent it to X, Y, and Z place or to so-and-so person. But now I'm having reservations because it's starting to smell like a scam.
Right.
And so just being able to give people that peace of mind of like, where did it go? What happened to it? And where is it now? That was the basis of being able to do investigations, and then it just blossomed from there.
Okay. You mentioned your certification. That's a certified fraud investigator, and you did that through the police department? What is that exactly?
No, I actually did that through an organization called the California Financial Crimes Investigators Association, the CFCIA.
CFCIA, okay.
And they're an organization that's been in California since the 50s. Mm-hmm. And it's comprised of banking compliance professionals and law enforcement. So once a month we meet, and they have a conference annually once a year, and it's information sharing. So people will share things like, hey, I'm seeing at the bank right now a lot of check scams, things like this. Does anybody have seen similar things? And then law enforcement will chime in. People can then ask for help directly. There's actually been people there like from the Elder Abuse Task Force.
Oh, yeah.
So there's a really wide range of people. And like I said, it's kind of an unknown organization, but it's been around since the 1950s.
Okay. So the CFCIA, you can report fraud directly to them? Do they help directly, or?
No, it's more of like a high-level organization for people who are involved in the finance industry and law enforcement.
Okay.
So it becomes like a network of people who are sharing information and trading information so that they can help each other with the cases that they're working on. And through that, so I was asked to speak back in 2015 at their conference. And then I realized that they offered an investigation certification. So that's how I ended up becoming a certified fraud investigator.
Okay.
And now I'm actually working on getting my private eye license.
Oh.
So that's the next step.
Oh, yeah. That's interesting. So obviously in 2015, when you approached CFCIA, they knew nothing about cryptocurrency.
No,
you introduced
not really.
it to them.
Well, they knew about it.
They'd heard of it.
Yeah, because it was getting more prominent in 2015, and there were some clients, and people were getting scammed still, and so they just wanted to have basic understanding of like, what is this thing? So that's where I fit in, was just generally explaining how this all works.
Okay. Can you, you founded something called Crypto Recovery Alliance. Is that something that you founded?
Yes.
Okay. And then also Coinstructive. Is that how it's pronounced?
Yeah.
Coinstructive. So can you tell us about those two entities and how you came to start those and what they do?
So Coinstructive came first. I established that in 2015, early 2015, and that was how I was going to find a way into the industry. I figured, regardless of what I do, I needed at least to put an anchor in the ground, and because I didn't have a lot of immediately relatable skills that went into crypto, like I wasn't in computer science, I wasn't in finance, I wasn't an attorney, although a lot of people think I am.
I know, I've heard that a couple of times, but
basically I said, if I was going back to school for a second degree, I would have to go nights and week. You just quit your job and like go back to school, unless you have the support. But I would do this in the evenings, weekends. I would educate myself, and so I just dedicated myself to treating it as if it was going to go back to school and get a master's or something like that. I would take vacation and I would go to conferences, right? And it was really about figuring out where I could find a place to fit in. And so Coinstructive was, to me, always going to be, if it didn't work out, if I was in the industry long enough and had enough connections, I would be able to find a job. And part of it was mostly I just didn't want to go back to the pharma industry. Mm-hmm. I wasn't happy there, and the career path I was on just didn't seem, it didn't resonate anymore. So when I was looking into building something, Coinstructive started out as an educational platform, because I was like, people just need to learn like what this is and why it's valuable and how to help themselves. Couldn't make any money doing that, right? So a couple failed business models, like I mentioned, and then boom, here we are doing crypto investigations starting in late 2019, mm-hmm. So just before COVID. And what led me to create the Crypto Recovery Alliance came directly out of working with victims, because I was in a really tough place financially at that time. I had laid off everybody. It was just me. I didn't really have any work for probably about a year, and it was getting pretty hairy. And I was actually looking to take a job at a gas station just so I could have a little bit of income, because there was no money coming in. And then all of a sudden, that's when the investigation work started to come, right? And I had formed a Bitcoin ATM company with some folks prior to that, and I ended up leaving because of difference of opinions. But I was the chief compliance officer, and so I started doing some of that work too. And once that word got out, all of a sudden I had 2 different balancing revenue streams coming in, and it felt like I'd finally found a niche and some stability. But the problem that never sat well with me was people would call or set up an appointment to talk about how they were scammed, and they didn't have any money to pay. And I was like, this is a problem. Like, there needs to be some place for people to go to get help who have actually lost everything, right? The gentleman who's 82 years old on a fixed income living in Arkansas, he doesn't now. He's lost $115,000, and he has $10,000 left in the bank or less. I can't take his money, right? But I also couldn't afford to work for free. So I had to turn down a lot of these people. So it took me several years before I was able to build and create the Crypto Recovery Alliance. I didn't know what it was going to be, but I knew I was going to create a nonprofit to help this class of victims, because there isn't really a great solution for victims of financial crime. Mm-hmm. Everything I hear is always, oh, well, must have been nice to have that much money to lose in the first place,
Yeah.
So eventually the goal was create a nonprofit so that people have a place to go that will provide them with, and what the CRA does now is no cost blockchain forensics investigations for people who qualify financially, access to lower no cost mental health care, which is still in the works, but we know that's a big proponent of being scammed. And then the third part is preventative education, because what you really don't want to see is the repeat victim. And unfortunately in crypto, once the scammers realize that you're not going to give them any more money, they had created a secondary scam as a recovery company.
Oh my God.
Who would somehow know that you were in this awful predicament and needed help, and they would find you. Well, how wonderful is that? Someone is offering to help me. They only need $10,000 to get started, and then they can get your crypto back for you. But the problem is people didn't know enough to evaluate whether or not this is even a legitimate thing, right? Because if your car was leaking some fluid or making some weird noise, and you took it to the mechanic and said, "What's wrong with it?" and he looked at the outside of the car and said, "That's probably the transmission. I'm going to need $7,000. You'd be like, "Wait a minute. You didn't even look under the hood." And you would drive your car to another shop and you would get a second opinion. People don't know enough about crypto, or only enough about crypto, to get themselves in over their heads. Like, oh yeah, it's plausible that these guys can get their money back. I've heard of that. But not knowing what they're being offered is a fallacy.
Yeah. So that's great, the three-prong approach that the Recovery Alliance is taking, because we work on those cases all the time, and it's devastating. As you said, first you lose all that money, possibly your life savings, and then if you're elderly, not only do you have no money, but you have no future, and it's embarrassing, and
Yes.
there's like the mental health aspect of it is really just devastating for people.
Well, and it's highly underreported because of that,
Right.
that shame factor, right? Like, oh, I'm so embarrassed to tell somebody.
Yeah.
And if it's a smaller amount, 30, 40 grand, let's say you have a sizable net worth, you might just not say anything.
Yeah.
You might not report it at all, and you just chalk it up to that was a bad decision.
Mm-hmm.
But and a lot of that is very similar across elder abuse, right? Highly underreported. And so what we're seeing is this opportunity for people to, if they can report, right? When this is one of the things I always stress is, regardless of the amount, report it. Because when it gets to the FBI, Homeland Security, Secret Service, whoever's going to take the case and look at it, what they're looking for is a nexus to other cases
Right.
that they're working on.
Yeah.
And the only way you can find that is by having enough information to connect those dots. And the great thing about the crypto world is the blockchain connects everything. So if you have a transaction that happened in April and you have another transaction that happened in June, two different victims, a lot of times the scammers are consolidating those funds at some point down the road.
Mm-hmm.
And that is what the law enforcement is looking for, is the connections and the nexus.
Right.
And so I tell people, look, if you're going to get your money back, it's likely going to happen in the first 6 months. And if it doesn't happen in the first 6 months, be prepared 3 to 5 years or never. And this helps set expectations so that they don't hear what I'm saying and go, I'm going to try to go find somebody else, because we all have the internet in our pocket now. How do I get my crypto back? And for a long time on Google, the number one advertiser was a crypto scam recovery company.
Mm.
Right?
Fraudulent.
Yeah. Yeah. And so when you talk to people and you realize that they think, if you get me my money back, it's going to solve all my problems. But they haven't looked far enough down the road. They're just looking at the immediate, oh my God, I lost all my money. I didn't really discuss this investment opportunity with my spouse. How am I going to tell them that I lost all of our life savings, right? Or most of it, or something to that effect.
Mm-hmm.
And they're just, if I can get my money back, it will fix everything. But the trust has already been broken. There's a lot of other factors involved. And you see everything from divorce, losing the house, losing your job. When you're not eating well and sleeping well, your performance goes down. And then everything around you starts to spiral downward. And that's what we're really trying to help prevent is, hey, here's the expectation. And be realistic in what's going to happen and take steps to, because after 6 months, what people realize is, oh, I guess Chris was right. Maybe I do need to think about working on holistically putting my life back together, repairing my relationships, trying to get my adult children to talk to me again, because then all of a sudden they're isolated, mm-hmm. right? And they feel like they have no place to turn. And that's a really bad place for people to be.
Yeah. Another obstacle, embarrassment is a huge one, as an obstacle to reporting. But another one for elderly people is fear of losing their rights. Like if they report that they made a bad decision, they feel like maybe someone's going to try and get a conservatorship or just try to take away their autonomy in terms of their being able to invest their own money. And then related to your guidance regarding reporting, so we had Scott Perello here a couple of weeks ago, he runs the district attorney's elder abuse prosecutions. And one thing he was saying is, so the reporting, one of the most important places to report this stuff is ic3.gov, I think is .gov.
Yes, and that's the FBI's internet crimes.
Exactly. So he was saying, I think, unfortunately, he was saying they actually follow up on less than 1%. They actually investigate less than 1% of the reporting cases that are reported. But if there is they do some kind of analysis, and if it is related to other cases, that's when you have a chance of actually having an investigation done. So if there's a pattern where they can see that it's all going to one place or there are certain wallets that are involved, that's when they will start to try to conglomerate the reports. And that's what the FBI will investigate.
That is true. The other thing the FBI is doing now is somewhat preventative cryptocurrency investigations. So they have been every year that goes by, the tools get better and better. The analysis gets stronger and stronger. And so law enforcement in general is being able to identify victims before they're completely wiped out. They can see money movement patterns. They can contact the exchanges where these people, because here's the thing, you have to take dollars someplace to convert them into crypto to then send the crypto. So they're basically following the blockchain data backwards, right? So they know, okay, we found the scammer money, we got a couple leads, but there's all this other money that we don't know where it's coming from going into the same place. Let's trace it backwards in time. So we trace backwards, and then we can see, this is coming from a Coinbase account and a Kraken account and all these different places. Then they reach out to those exchanges and say, looks like this customer might be getting scammed. Can we talk to them? And they've saved hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions of dollars already in doing that. So that's what I'm saying is every year that goes by, the tools get better and the knowledge and the people working on these things get stronger, and there's more chances for people to get money back. Again, 3 to 5 years, we're now seeing seizures, right, by the DOJ, 225 million, I think 115 million, and then there was a $15 billion seizure.
Wow.
Now the problem is that the DOJ puts it up on their website and says, hey, here's the seizure. Go ahead and fill out a form and show us a nexus, and we'll put in a claim and you'll get money back. Except it's almost impossible for people to make a connection to the nexus because the data is not complete, meaning there's only partial there's wallet addresses and things that maybe they've identified that belong to the scammers, but that's so far removed from like your initial transaction that when you submit, here's what I sent it, and the government looks at it and they go, that's not a nexus. Gone. And the problem is that where is all that crypto that's being seized going? Into the new treasury, the crypto treasury, right? So
you're talking about the reserve, like
the crypto reserve,
okay.
Yeah. So they're basically, if they can't find the victims, the government gets to keep the money.
Yeah.
And I can only imagine being a victim, finding out that there was a 30, 60-day window to apply to this. There's no advertising. It's not like you're going to see a commercial on the internet or on the web, right? Or on TV. So how do you even know that you should be looking or applying for restitution, right? Or putting in a claim? Nobody even knows. So if you imagine finding out 6 months after the fact that you had an opportunity maybe to get some money back, but now it's that timeline or that time frame is expired. How devastating would that be? It's like having to live through the trauma all over again. It's like losing the money again, right? So there's going to be opportunities for people, but if they don't report ever, they're never going to be able to find that nexus. And if they report early, and they might actually be 3-5 years down the later, there might be a way to then connect them to those funds.
That's very interesting. I didn't realize there was sort of a window of time that people have to try to make a claim against the official reserve that the United States is currently holding.
Well, it's not against the reserve per se. It's against the seized assets.
Right, the seized assets. But then they go, once they're in the reserve, then it's too late? How does that work?
That's my understanding.
Oh.
Yeah. So one of the things we didn't talk about is while I was building Coinstructive and all the way from 2015 up through even recently, I've always had a hand in legislative and lawmaking side of things, because I felt like no matter what I do, it doesn't take anything except a little bit of extra time to be involved and educate lawmakers so that they don't implement things that are destructive or counterintuitive to the industry. And so I always felt like that would be a way to fall back on something or point to something like, hey, maybe my business didn't work, but I've always been a proponent of, building good legislation and protecting consumers. And so I'm actually working right now on introducing some new legislation about a victims fund. So not all of that money is going to go directly into a crypto treasury or a reserve. It's going to be, some of it will be siphoned off and used in different ways to help the community.
Oh, that's a great idea.
So I'm not sure exactly what that's going to look like yet, but I have been contacting folks, and I have a couple trips already planned to D.C. this year.
So you're working on federal legislation. Anything in California?
No, not currently, because the seizures at this level, like the large amounts of money that are being seized, are all through the federal level.
Right.
So, but when you build template law, which I've worked on before for businesses, the uniform
Commercial code.
Yeah, the UCC, but there was the Uniform Regulation of Virtual Currency Businesses Act.
I saw that.
This was a long time ago, and it was basically template law for all the states to adopt something so that they at least were using the same language, because early on, they are all using different definitions, and like nothing was similar, and one state to the next, you could have a completely different experience.
So what happened with that? Was that enacted, or what's the status?
It was. A lot of states have adopted most of the language from those bills, but a lot of the states are very slow at moving.
I see.
But before there weren't, like, you didn't even need a license to operate as a financial institution in these states.
Mm-hmm.
And some entities did and some didn't. And so it was really just helping to lay the groundwork for that. And so not every state has adopted money transmitter licensing laws around crypto, but most of them are either have, and I want to say that there's about 35 or 36 states, I think, that have adopted cryptocurrency legislation for licensing, and more states are following. So within the next three years, I would say probably 90% of states will have licensing for crypto institutions. So you can feel confident when you go to a crypto exchange that one of the things you should look for is that license, right? They should list their license number. If they don't list their license number on the website somewhere, that's a red flag.
But I mean, if they're scammers, what's to stop them from just having a fake license number? I mean, like, what is the?
So you can actually look up the licenses.
Okay.
There's the NMLS, which the NMLS is the National Mortgage Lending. I can't remember what it's called,
Mm-hmm.
but that's where like at a federal level, basically, people are getting their licenses, federal and at the state level. So you have to apply to like multiple different states. So like if you're a bank, you get a charter and you can operate across the country. If you're a PayPal or a fintech company, you have to apply for licenses in every single state,
Mm-hmm.
or you can't operate there, right? So if they have a license, it's the same number, and there's a lookup, an NMLS lookup. You can literally just type in NMLS lookup,
Mm-hmm.
and the website will pop up, and you can put in the license number or the name of the company, and it should show you where they're licensed, where are all the states, if they've had any issues, like if they've been blocked or lost their license or whatever it is. But now you have a place where you can go to legitimately check to see if the organization you're working with is real or not.
And if it's real, what is there actual oversight? Like if they have a license according to this NMLS system, does that mean that someone is watching? What kind of reporting requirements are there? What does compliance look like for them?
Yeah, there are audits.
Okay.
So yeah, you have, it's not necessarily every year, but every couple years, and each state has their own auditors. So they are looking for things like, what does your compliance program look like? How are you treating customers? What happens in a refund situation? And just like, in general, like how are you operating? What are your security practices? And so it's a very complex process to get licensed. It doesn't happen. It's not like you just fill out a form, send it in. It's a multi-step process, and it's pretty rigorous.
Mm-hmm.
So they're usually like, so the California Department of Financial Protection and Innovation, the CADFPI, is in California the organization that oversees all the crypto licenses. And there's actually a place on the DFPI's website where they report crypto scams.
Oh.
So you can go, I can't remember the name of the website, I should have prepped that one ahead of time, but I'm sure it'll be in the show notes. Where you can go and you can see people who have reported scams to the DFPI. Hey, I got scammed. Here's the website, and here's some information about it. So that's another resource that you can use to check, to see, like, I wonder if this website is legitimate, right? And which, if you get two red flags, like I can't find a license, and I found them reported as a scam. Okay, now I know I should not be talking to these guys or interacting or sending any of my money there.
We had one case of a client who had actually used the Coinbase browser So Coinbase has a browser, and he didn't know that it was a Coinbase browser. He thought he was actually just dealing with Coinbase, like he had logged into Coinbase, but he actually was interacting with a third party. And so that's a situation where he kind of got hoodwinked into a scam that wasn't initiated or even being monitored by Coinbase at all. But he went into Coinbase and he ended up with some nefarious third party and then lost a lot of money.
Yeah, so there's I'm not trying to bash Coinbase, but they have not been really proactive at consumer protection. And the technologies that they've provided to the industry or to consumers has been confusing. Meaning, there's Coinbase, the website, which is if you use that exchange and you sign up, set up an account, you have what's called a custodial account at Coinbase. Coinbase also released a wallet application called Coinbase Wallet. It's not a custodial solution. It is a standalone non-custodial solution, meaning everything in that wallet you control as an individual. But they're basically named the same thing. And to make it even more confusing, inside the Coinbase Wallet application is a way to connect to your exchange custodial account, which usually has connections to your bank, right, through ACH or wire, so that if you want to buy crypto in your app, you can connect it to your Coinbase custodial wallet, purchase, and then the money gets moved over. If you don't know that little nuance, you feel like the Coinbase Wallet app is Coinbase.
Right.
And originally, both applications, Coinbase, the custodial, and Coinbase, the wallet, the application like logos looked almost identical. So people would say, oh, I got scammed because I was using Coinbase. And there is a way to connect to outside third-party services in the non-custodial app. So people, when they would report to us, they would say, I got scammed from Coinbase. And then we'd have to ask all these series of questions just to figure out which application or which version they were using, and then tell them that's actually not Coinbase. They just made a wallet that you're using, and they have nothing to do with it other than providing you the technology, and you have no recourse to go back to Coinbase and say, I was scammed. So this is part of why I even created the nonprofit, was because victims, and doing just doing this work in general, because what's the path now for the victim? Okay, I got scammed. I thought I was using Coinbase. I contact Coinbase, and they say, sorry, go to the police. Go to the FBI. So then you do, and you report that you lost $100,000, and nobody in local law enforcement really has the skills or the tools to trace these things. And $100,000 is below that threshold that the FBI is even flagging, because they don't have enough people or resources either. The people who are doing the financial investigations at the FBI, they are also doing all financial investigations. So healthcare embezzlement or healthcare fraud, embezzlement, like all these other things, they have to do those too. So there's just not enough people to do that or to build those connections per se. Now their systems have gotten better, because 5-6 years ago, there wasn't even a place to mention on the IC3 report that this is crypto related. The form has changed, right? And what people realize is, or what I need people to realize now is, when you do fill out an IC3 report with the FBI, you should be putting as much information about the crypto part as possible. Not just saying I was scammed and here's the website, here's the wallet address that I sent, here's the transaction ID that I used, that was the transaction that I actually, which is basically the receipt. And that is information then that law enforcement can use to see if there is a connection, right?
Yeah, what you're describing with law enforcement has been, it's just been the reality forever. Like law enforcement has limited resources.
Correct.
And so there's always going to be a threshold where they're just not going to be able to investigate. It's just the reality of it. So that's where we come in, actually, in a way. For some cases where law enforcement can't investigate, we have civil remedies that we can pursue in some cases. But that's also, I think, where you would come in as an investigator, because, the police labs, I know there are very few of them, but there are some labs that do forensic crypto work. Yeah. But it sounds like that's what you're doing as well. I'd love to hear about what your investigations look like, what the time frames are. What I know the likelihood of recovery is low, but where does the investigation start? Where does it go? What are the mechanisms? Tell us about it.
Yeah, so let's start with that question that everybody wants to know is like, what is that % chance of recovery? Now, people think, oh, it's crypto, like you should be able to get it back. But in actuality, it's in traditional finance, getting your money back after you wired money internationally or something. Excuse me, it's in the 0 to 5% chance.
Right.
That doesn't change for crypto. So it's still in that very low percentage. Now, that's why I tell people you have to have a different kind of time horizon. But the older you are, the less of a time horizon you feel like you have.
Right.
Right? Like there's more desperation. So how we conduct investigations basically is we need starting points. So we directly speak with the victims. We have a form on our website that they can fill out. And there's
You're talking about the Crypto Recovery Alliance or
Coinstructive.
Coinstructive, okay.
So we'll talk about Coinstructive first.
Okay.
So there's a form you fill out, and it lets us know kind of like the basic overall situation that you find yourself in. And as long as you've lost $10,000 or more, you're going to initially qualify for a free consultation. Now, we say 15 minutes on our website, but we don't cut people off of 15 minutes because people sometimes just need to vent and to tell their story and feel like they're not alone. And sometimes it takes a little bit longer to kind of explain to someone what they think has happened isn't the reality. And there's some cognitive dissonance sometimes where they're like, I know I'm speaking to this person and I've had conversations with video and right. And I even withdrew. So when we first started doing investigations, the scammers would never let anybody withdraw money from a platform. Now they've realized someone puts in $10,000, they want to withdraw $5,000, then they go all in. Right. So they'll put in 100, 200. They'll take a loan out on their home. They'll borrow from friends and family. It gets really, awful. And
Pig butchering, right? Isn't that part of pig butchering?
Yes.
Like instilling that trust.
The romance scams. Yeah. And not always is it romance, right? The pig butchering. It's about convincing them because initially a lot of times it was, I'm sending money to a person that needs help, right? But then it turned into, I made a lot of money investing in this platform over here. You can too. And I'll show you how.
Right.
And because money is basically numbers on a screen these days, whether it's on your phone or on your computer, people think what they see on the screen is real. And they have no reason to not believe it until it's too late, right? So that's I think one of the hardest things for people right now is to understand that when you're sending, that's why I mentioned those red flags. When you're sending money to an exchange and they let you withdraw, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's legit. Right? You need to look for those other telltale factors or signs that the place that you're working with is a real place. So that's one of the biggest difficulties. But back to like methodology, once you have some starting points, like that initial, really all we need is that initial transaction. Hey, they directed me to go to a Bitcoin ATM. I put in $3,000, and I did this for a couple of weeks, and I lost $15,000. Okay, great. Can you get us those transactions, right? And usually they're like, yeah, I have the receipts. So they'll take some pictures, they'll send it to us. Now we have a place to start. So now we can go in and we have tools where we can pop in this information and actually start looking at the data and following it forward to figure out where it has gone. Now, I will share with you and your audience that over the last couple of years, investigations have gotten a lot more complex.
Mm-hmm.
So we actually built a tool that's now available for the public to use to check their own transactions. So it's called Path Tracer, pathtracer.io, and it allows anyone who is even considering maybe sending money to a place or has already sent crypto to a place and is like not sure if they're being scammed, but wants a way to check without having to talk to a person, right? Like that is, again, I have to admit that I maybe made a mistake or did something wrong, but I'm not really sure and I don't want to admit that yet. Well, now you have a place where you can go and for, an insignificant amount of money is what it would cost to hire an investigator, you can check your own transaction. All you have to do is put in the transaction ID and hit submit, and it will auto trace forward and let you know what entities it's now being held at or has gone to, or if it's sitting in a dormant wallet where it's just waiting. Sometimes the scammers will just take the money and they won't actually move it for quite a while because they know people are watching. So, but this is something now you can then decide for yourself. I made 5 transactions. I checked all 5 of them, and I can see that within a few hops, it ended up at Binance, Crypto.com, some foreign exchange I've never heard of. Why is my money going to these random places? That doesn't make any sense. I'm sending it to so-and-so exchange. Right? Now the picture starts to become a little more clear that maybe what I thought I was doing is not actually happening. And so now you have some basis to actually use to then maybe reach out to an investigator and say, I actually think this might be worth having someone look into it further and confirming my suspicions. And now you've just drastically reduced your costs because you've already submitted the data. So our team can look at the data and then produce a forensic report at a fraction of the cost as it would have cost to do it if you had just reached out to us outright. So building tools like this is something that we really feel strongly about so that, like I said, you can check yourself and you don't have to worry about feeling shameful or having to actually talk to someone.
That's a great tool. So pathtracer.io, that's the URL?
Yes.
So once they go to pathtracer.io and then they see something suspicious, they don't understand where the money's going, then they would reach out to you?
So there's a sign up. You sign up for an account,
Mm-hmm.
and then you can purchase credits. And I'll give your audience a discount code. You can put that in the show notes too.
Okay, great.
So they'll get a discount for their purchase of credits, and then they can run their own transactions. And they'll actually it won't just tell them, it will show them. So it shows an actual image of how the money moved, where it's sitting now. And then there'll be a little button that says like investigator contact if you want to follow up with somebody and say, hey, I think I need someone else to look into this a little bit more and help me understand if what I think I'm seeing is right and if you can produce a report for me. And so then once they run the transactions themselves and see what kind of data they get, then they can contact us directly and we can help determine whether it's worth actually getting a report and quote them a price that would be drastically reduced.
So what would that report look like? Like if they get this initial information off of PathTracer,
Mm-hmm.
And then they decide, okay, we're going to hire you. What do you then do with that information? What other information do you gather, and what's the report that you create?
So we, unlike a lot of other firms that do this work, we actually document every step that the money takes. A lot of firms will say, it started here and we traced it and it ended up at these places. So if you can find like a centralized exchange or a custodial exchange, that's where you can send it for law enforcement, and they could subpoena or seize or get more information about who the account holders are, what happened to the money after it left the exchange. Because once the money hits an exchange, it's a black box. It's just like putting money in the bank.
Mm-hmm.
It becomes property of the bank, or it becomes property of the exchange. So it's very easy to trace through an exchange and keep following the money. But in actuality, as soon as it hits the exchange, done. It stops there. You have to go ask the exchange, what happened to this money? Who owns it? Who controls it? Now, as civilians, we can't really do that, right? Now, lawyers can do that if they can put a case together.
Mm-hmm.
But ideally, what our reports are for two purposes. One, to demonstrate a loss of taxes, because we show every single hop out of the way. So if you don't ever get your money back, you can at least show, I invested this much and it was a loss. But also producing the images and each hop of the data and providing that to law enforcement, it's like giving them everything they need, right? A lot of times then they can just confirm that the path we took is correct. So we'll use traditional forensic accounting methodologies. First in, first out, last in, first out. Those are the two main ones that we use. And then sometimes direct attribution, meaning like if you see $10,000 go into a wallet that already had $30,000 in it, but the very next transaction is 1 minute later or 15 minutes later for the exact same amount, it's almost guaranteeing that that money that went in is the same money that went out, and then we would follow that. Right, so this allows us to prove very clearly that the money that we're following is actually the money that belongs to the victim. Because once it's commingled, a lot of times law enforcement will say, sorry, there's not much we can do, it's commingled. How do we know if we can follow that? Well, the in-house tools that we use allow us to track specific amounts. So $100,000 hits a wallet with $1 million in it. We know when exactly that $100,000 came out, whether it's in smaller portions or whatever. And that is what we can give to then law enforcement. So now you have this report that you can supply to the FBI. You can supply to local law enforcement, because a lot of times local law enforcement, you just need to have that it was reported. They're not likely going to be able to do anything, but you need that first step. I reported it to local. Now I can report it to the federal agencies. A lot of times people just go straight to the IC3, and it doesn't have as much weight to it.
Okay.
Right?
So people should be doing this kind of investigation and then going to the local police department and the
Yes.
FBI, wherever they can report it.
Yeah, absolutely. Because as a tool, what we're seeing in local law enforcement is that the junior officers or detectives are the ones being assigned to these cases, right? Just in general, the older I get, the less I want to do new things. The same thing is true for everyone. And we all know law enforcement is usually overworked and underpaid. And imagine also like having a stack of cases on your desk that you know how to work, and then someone throws a crypto case on your desk and you're like, I don't really even know where to begin. Well, having someone basically map it all out for you helps you learn also as you go.
Right.
And it gives them this leg up to understand, oh, well, maybe I can, this was a U.S. exchange. I can do this. I can send a request and find out what happened. Now, maybe at some point out of their jurisdiction, which is then why it has to go to the federal. Mm-hmm. Right? Now, Las Vegas Police Department has been doing crypto investigations directly since at least 2015.
Wow. Which
I was blown away that they were doing that back then. So it will become just like I equate it to, and it's funny that I'm going back to a genetics reference, but 30, 40 years ago, any DNA sample that needed to be tested was sent to the federal government because they're the only ones that had the labs.
Right.
Now, every police department has a DNA lab. So we're going to get there eventually, right? It's just going to take a while to where there will be people in-house and the tools will be available at local law enforcement, right? Like, I'm looking forward to that day. Like, maybe that means I get less cases because people can go directly to the police, but that means there's more people helping victims. And that's really, at the end of the day, what we want.
Right. Are the exchanges, are they pretty much cooperative with law enforcement when they come with these reports?
It's jurisdictionally based, right? I mean, if you end up with money at a Chinese exchange,
right, of course,
good luck getting a subpoena for more information. Now, the cool thing about crypto that I will say is and what they tell you in the beginning is crypto's global. It goes across borders. It doesn't matter what the regulations really are in other countries. If I have a wallet and you have a wallet, I can send it directly to you, no questions asked. No one has to give me permission, right? So there's some beauty in that, right? But also there's this this kind of disconnect because it doesn't necessarily feel like there's a system in place where I can take action if something bad does really happen, right? Like I mentioned before, like I go back to Coinbase and they're like, sorry, not our problem, right? So same thing. So if law enforcement you contact, or personally, a lot of times, well, no, not personally. You really do need law enforcement. A lot of these exchanges have a place for law enforcement to fill out a form, make a request, even if they're in a foreign jurisdiction. Because one, the U.S. has a very long arm, and they have already gone after foreign exchanges, and they have been, the CEOs have been prosecuted, thrown in jail. Wow. These companies are being fined, and they even have like government oversight. So, and all these exchanges are also targets for hacks. So if a large exchange gets hacked, a lot of times there's going to be a concerted effort between local law enforcement, federal law enforcement in whatever country that is, and U.S. government law enforcement. And so all of a sudden these exchanges have realized that it's probably good that we cooperate across the globe. And so you'll find that even if it's in a jurisdiction that's not very cooperative, you will probably get an answer if you're from a law enforcement agency. So here's a perfect example. I want to say it was in Pennsylvania, and it was in the Amish country. And there was a police department, and the guy said, I'll send the subpoena to Binance, but I almost guarantee they won't respond to me because they're in the Cayman Islands. 2 weeks later, he got all the data that he wanted.
Wow.
And so my example is, don't be afraid just to ask. If it's on law enforcement letterhead, there's a really, really good chance you're going to get the data because these exchanges know that crypto is global. It's not just to their jurisdiction. Whatever jurisdiction they set up in is usually due to tax benefit, right?
Yeah.
So I would tell if there's any law enforcement or if you're working with law enforcement, to tell them not to be afraid to send a request. It doesn't even necessarily have to be a full subpoena, which is the other beautiful thing. Literally just write a question, explain what happened, show the connections of where the money has gone, and ask what you want to ask. Who owns those accounts? Because a lot of times that has become actually a dead end also. You'll see that these fake exchanges, their tactic is to get real people to sign up on a fake exchange, and they do real onboarding now. So they're asking for your ID. They're asking you to do a selfie and a liveness check sometimes so they can, and it makes it feel like it's a real exchange. But what the scammers are then doing with AI tools and things is now they have a copy of your ID and your face. And so they map the face to them, and then they go to these real exchanges and set up an account using your information. And they use that to funnel and launder the money through the exchanges until it gets recognized, shut down, or closed. But they just continually are doing this.
Yeah.
So it really behooves these exchanges to take what law enforcement is requesting seriously, regardless of whether it's a subpoena, like court order approved, signed by a judge, or a request on letterhead with the, I hope they respond. And a lot of times you get they respond.
Wow. I want to ask you about like deep fakes and AI and how that's all playing into this, but I have one question first about Crypto Recovery Alliance. So you described what happens if they go through this Path Tracer IO and then work with Coinstructive. So what happens if they are a victim of a scam and they call Crypto Recovery Alliance, or is there a way to do that?
Yeah, so we're still early in the Crypto Recovery Alliance's formation. We do have nonprofit status, but I don't have the bandwidth or the bodies to really handle the case work that needs to be done there yet. And so we haven't officially been taking victims yet.
Okay.
So it's technically, you're more than welcome to reach out to us and share that information with the CRA, the Crypto Recovery Alliance. But right now, we don't have the bandwidth to help or work with victims directly yet.
Okay.
But the process will be very similar, right? So that's the great thing about doing a for-profit is you need the same information.
Mm-hmm.
So it'll be a little bit different in that each person that signs up for the Crypto Recovery Alliance will get an account portal, and then they will fill out a form. And if they qualify financially, then they will get free blockchain forensics services.
Oh, wow.
Automatically.
Amazing.
Right. Now, if they don't qualify, they'll still be able to get access to the preventative education and the lower no-cost mental health care. Right. So, and these are all things we're still building partnerships for, and so it's still really in its infancy, but I think you can see where we're trying to go.
Yeah, no, I think it's an amazing initiative, and I'd be happy to talk to you about ideas that I have in terms of partnerships and things like that.
Oh, I any help that we can get, I would appreciate.
Okay, great. Going back to the issue with I would say scammers using information that they glean from people who are kind of tricked into it. That's sort of one category. But the reality is, given how many companies are hacked now, there's just endless information about people on the black market. They can just buy it. And then also with AI, I'm really interested in hearing what you think about where AI is going to take this. We're all potentially victims because how do you discern what's real from what's not real in the future? Already AI is so capable, but in a week from now, it's 10 times as capable. So what's going to happen with crypto scams, and how does anyone protect themselves moving forward?
That's a great question. And I don't have a really good answer because I almost got hacked yesterday. And I'll share this story briefly because it was the closest I've ever been to really being totally compromised. And it happened through a Telegram chat. Okay. Now, I have what I would consider pretty good operational security. I have multiple phone numbers. I don't use the same phone numbers for everything. I have multiple different email accounts. I don't always use apps on my phone and install those apps on my computer. And in this case, I think that really helped me because there's one thing that the scammers are always trying to do is push urgency.
Right. Yeah.
Now. You have to do it now. Right? So I met this woman a month ago, 6 weeks ago at a conference retreat in Utah. And it didn't seem that odd to me that she would reach out, a month later and, hey, Chris, how's it going? Just wanted to see how things are. and wanted to see if you want to jump on a call. Oh, great, cool. And at the time, I was like, this was yesterday. And I was like having a long day, and I was like, man, you know what? I could really use a good little mental break. Yeah, let's just have a call. I was like, do you mind if I send you a Google Meet? And she responds, I've already set up a Teams link. Okay, cool, send it over. So she sends it over. And because it's on my phone in Telegram, I have to, and I'm not going to I didn't want to just click on it on my phone because the camera, and if I wanted to take notes, I wanted to be able to have the computer. I like the computer. So I emailed myself the link. And then I went to my computer, opened the email, clicked on the link, and it was the exact Teams experience that if you've ever used Microsoft Teams for a meeting, you know what the experience is. Well, I also don't really like the Teams meeting application, so I typically will use the browser version. And so I said, yes, connect via the browser, and then boom, now I'm in. And I can see the woman who I've met before, another gentleman who I've never met before, and then all of a sudden, a pop-up. And it said, experiencing audio issues, you need to update your SDK. And I said, this doesn't seem right. I've never seen an update happen in the middle of the meeting. And so I couldn't get the audio to connect correctly, and I was like, something's not right. And that was the first red flag, was just your intuition. Something doesn't feel right. So I closed the app, and I was like, must be, because I was also experiencing computer issues that day, little gremlins in the computer. And so I rejoined. And now she's texting me, oh, I had the same issue earlier. Just click on the update. She said, as you can see, I was like, well, let me just send you a different link. She's like, I can't join another platform. And me and my, and as you can see, it's me and my mate. Well, I'd met her a month before. She is not Australian. Why is she using the word mate to refer to her colleague? And so as time, and this is just 5-6 minutes, every minute that goes by, more things are adding up that don't make sense. To where I sent her a Google Meet link, a Zoom link, and my own Teams link. Mm-hmm. And they would not join any of them. And then I went to the group chat from the conference. Someone else had also been approached by her for a meeting. Her account was hacked, and they were going through every conversation she had and trying to get people to join this call, click on this thing, and it would have installed malware, and it would have given complete control over my computer, and then they would have found any crypto that was on there and wiped me clean. And I was literally one click away from probably being in a very distraught position, right? And this is what I mean, like people who are in this industry every day for 10 plus years can still make mistakes.
Oh yeah.
Right? So the way why I bring this up is that the image of her on the screen, if there had been none of this thing pop up, I would have assumed it was her. So it looked exactly like her.
It was her image and her voice? Like she was...
Well, there was no audio initially.
Oh, no audio.
Right?
I got it. But
so,
you can deep fake audio too, right?
You can. But that's another layer of complexity that you also have to do. This was her face. It looked really good. She was moving around. And we know the technology for this is getting better and better.
Yeah.
So I bring this up because I hate to tell people to be overly paranoid, but the biggest thing they say is don't click on links that you're not familiar with. So if someone sends you a link and says, click on this, even though you may trust them, a really good step to take is to use a website that can scan the URL or the link before you click on it. So copy and paste it. I use one called urlscan.io. You go to the website, you pop in the link, and in a couple seconds it tells you a bunch of information about it, where it's located, how long it's been active, if they have security certificates, how long that's been active, if it matches any other sites on the internet, because a lot of times they'll recreate them. And what I found out was that this link and the base domain that was inside of that link came from the Lazarus Group, which is a North Korean hacker group.
Damn.
So I didn't have any, I checked my computer, I didn't have anything, I didn't get anything installed. I was very lucky. I'm very thankful that I was able to catch it. But don't click on links you don't know, even if it's from someone you don't know. Scan it first, especially if it's, an investment opportunity or someone you don't know that well.
Mm-hmm.
That would be one of the biggest suggestions that I can say.
I mean, that's a really scary story, but what I find kind of frightening and diabolical is, like, now everything is multi-factor authentication. So whenever you try to, like on Teams, we use probably 10 different platforms in Microsoft 365, and they're constantly just like, okay, you got a multi-factor, and it sends up this box. There's no URL, it's just like a box, and you have to like click here, maybe scan with your phone. Like, there are all these different ways to do it, but sometimes you have a bunch of browsers open, and you're working on a bunch of different cases, and then just like a authentication window pops up, and you're like, did I log into Excel? Did I log into Teams? Like, it's, if they're really smart and they're really using AI properly and they're really deep faking something that is identical to what you normally see, I think we're all just kind of like, what are we going to do?
Yeah, well, and that's part of like, operational security. So your phone and the applications on there and the things that are on your computer, right? You may want to have like separate devices. Like I don't really have any crypto wallets on my work computer. So even if I'd gotten hacked, it probably wouldn't have gotten anything.
That's great.
Except all my data, right? Or which could include clients and case data, and who knows what they could have actually, or all my passwords,
Yeah.
right, to other things, which then they could have gotten into other stuff. So, I mean, it could have been a disaster. But where are we going with AI in general? I mean, it's just gonna continue. There's gonna be more. And so, I mean, I hesitate to say, like, just don't do anything, but try to confirm.
Yeah.
If you have another way to contact somebody, like I've had friends call me. One of my wife's friends called me and said, okay, I just wanted to talk to you because I'm going to wire the 20 grand. And I said, wire the 20 grand to who? To you. And I said, really? I mean, I'll take it. But I'm like, I don't think you're talking to me.
Mm-hmm.
And turns out he wasn't. He was talking to an impersonator. And so that phone call saved him,
Mm-hmm.
right? So go slow, double check,
Yeah.
triple confirm, safe words, right? Like right now there's a big thing about with your parent. My parents are both 75, and I've told them that we need a safe word.
Mm-hmm. That's brilliant.
Right?
Yeah.
And because if they call and somebody says, hey, your son's been in an accident, I need you to send some money,
Mm-hmm.
people they're just doing it. But if, hey, send some money, okay, what's our word? What's our secret word? And then crickets, right? So there are some things that you can do to kind of protect yourself against AI.
Yeah.
But I think the biggest thing is go slow and double check.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're right. Urgency, that's really one of the primary tools that they use to try to get people to act immediately and in ways that are very destructive.
Yeah, and they're hoping also that you're distracted in some way. Like there's something going on in your life. A lot of times when I talk to so many well-educated, highly skilled professionals who end up getting scammed. My wife was giving birth. Our child was in the NICU. I hadn't been sleeping very much. I got this thing on my phone, an email that said I needed to update my hardware wallet.
Mm-hmm.
I clicked into it when I was at home and I typed in my seed phrase and hit enter. And then as soon as I did that, I realized I had messed up. Right? Lack of sleep, distractions. Yesterday, I was a little bit distracted. Like I said, I needed a mental break. There was a lot going on. And I just casually clicked on the link. I didn't follow my normal protocol, right? Even though this was someone that I had met recently and felt comfortable like talking to and spent some time with. I was literally that close, right, to being hacked.
Yeah, that's a crazy story. I want to go back to the legislation that you've worked on, but also I want to ask you about what you think ideal consumer-friendly legislation would look like when it comes to cryptocurrency. Like if you could just kind of get anything passed, what would that be?
That's a great question because the whole premise of the initial, like when I got in, it was only Bitcoin. There was no crypto, right?
Mm-hmm.
There were the whole premise of Bitcoin was that it was outside of the government purview.
Right.
It was for people who didn't want to be in the system.
Mm-hmm.
Not necessarily in a bad way, right? Which just with any technology comes good and bad, right? Whether that's, like an actual technology, like computer facing, or like the invention of firearms, right? Like good and bad uses. So I don't necessarily want there to be so much regulation and legislation that it hampers an individual's ability to interact, transact the way they want, right? I mean, the beauty is like if I had family, like a lot of it is remittance. People, like the U.S.-Mexico channel corridor for remittance is billions and billions of dollars every year. Just in Otay Mesa down in the San Diego border, they do about $2 billion a day.
Wow.
In the cash transfers and exchanges. So when you realize that if someone needs to send money to their family member, they could do it on a Sunday night. They don't have to wait for the bank to open. And it's going to be relatively cheap to do also. Now, what kind of regulations do we need around that? I mean, other than what the financial institutions already have in place, why do we need more restrictions on the individual, on what they can do with their funds? So I hate to overstep and say we need more regulation than what we really already have, because it's not necessarily going to protect consumers per se. It's going to hamper their ability to do what they want. And so I don't really have a good answer on what amazing or the proper consumer protection legislation looks like, because again, a lot of it is if you do this, then you're taking away individual freedoms.
Mm-hmm. But is there anything that would help you as an investigator that would?
Well, there are those things are mostly in place now, right? Like the money transmitter licensing laws and things that these organizations need to get, so that there is a place that law enforcement can go to request more information and follow up, and proper oversight, right? Like we saw what happened with FTX. I mean, they were investing in things they shouldn't have. They were moving money in ways they didn't even have the liquidity for. And then all of a sudden, there was a run on the exchange, and everything crumbled. And people lost like a lot of money. I mean, lots of money, right? And now Sam Bankman-Fried is in jail, right? And so, you know, would there have been anything that could have been put in place that would have prevented that? I don't really know, because there was oversight, and it wasn't being maybe properly applied to them, and there were gaps, and so this could have maybe been caught by regulators earlier, but I don't think that is necessarily something that the individual can protect themselves. Just like if a bank like Silicon Valley Bank went under,
Mm-hmm.
there was nothing that the individuals can do about a bank going out of business.
Right.
Right? Like, but there are regulatory things in place to protect some of those assets for people, right? FDIC insurance.
Mm-hmm.
There is no FDIC insurance. Now, for crypto,
Yeah.
right? And so, like, things like, are we going to get to that place? Probably, when it comes to things like stable coins,
Mm-hmm.
right? Which are just digital dollars. And there's been a lot of laws passed, and there's new laws that are in the works. This is part of what's in the holdup in DC right now, is both parties can't necessarily agree on how they want to move forward, because big banks have a huge interest to protect how they make money. And one of their advantages is by offering interest on savings accounts or money market accounts. Well, these crypto exchanges were allowing people to make interest on their stable coins that they were parking at these exchanges. And then these exchanges were then using that money to go and invest in other things, and they were rehypothecating the money.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there's been this legislation that says, as long as you don't rehypothecate, then you can kind of put yourself in a better position to take in stable coins and kind of look more like a bank. But where they've started to draw the line in the sand is getting interest for depositing these stable coins at these crypto institutions. Because the banks are one of the heaviest lobbyists and most important things in businesses in the U.S. And they have a lot of influence, right? I mean,
we're very familiar with it. We also work on consumer-friendly legislation.
So, I mean, that would be, maybe there's a way we can partner, right? So, and talk about what things you think might be advantageous to add into crypto legislation.
Yeah.
That could benefit consumers as well, because there is a need for it, but it's a fine line to walk between stripping freedoms and providing protections.
Right. We're mostly concerned with figuring out ways where victims might be able to get compensated. At this point, that's part of what we're thinking about. But that you are too. That's what you were talking about earlier.
Well, there have been some states, so it's not like at the federal level, but certain states are starting to implement things like, if you were scammed at a Bitcoin ATM, I believe Connecticut is one of the states that is doing this, you have a right to get your money back, regardless of that it's already been sent off.
Wow.
Right? Or that they can't keep the fees that they charged you. They have to at least give you the fee. So if you spend $1,000 and it costs you $100 to do so, you can get the $100 back. But some of them are actually, you have to refund the money if it's reported within a certain window of time. Now, the Bitcoin ATM companies aren't too happy about this because it's not their fault that the victim was scammed, and they have things in place that say, like, are you sending to a third party? Because we don't allow that. But there's not really a way to prevent somebody from doing that when the only requirement is provide your ID and then give us a wallet address to send you the money, right? But a lot of times what we'll see is on the pictures at the kiosk, you got the gentleman or the woman who's on their phone talking to somebody while they're doing it.
Coaching
right.
them.
And they've sent them the QR code, that is the Bitcoin address, to scan at the kiosk. So then they hold it up to the screen, and now you can see the chat and the conversation that's happening. Red flag.
Wow.
But you don't necessarily get that information right away. The system is set up to check certain things. Did they provide an ID? Did the IDs pass? Did they scan a wallet address that isn't sanctioned, tied to a darknet market, another scam? So the back end is checking the wallet, and if they send you a clean, brand new wallet address, it's not going to have any attribution that makes it risky. So it could be that person's wallet.
Right.
And so how do you tell a customer, sorry, I can't perform this transaction because there's a possibility that you might be, every customer has a possibility of being scammed, then there's no business there. There's no business to be for, an operation to make any money or run a business at all at that point.
Right.
So I do feel like we're going to be in this gray area where there's going to be legislation that is bad for business, good for consumer. And then also you're going to have the flip side where it's going to be not so great for the consumer, good for the business. And because we still have lawmakers who don't necessarily understand what they're doing, we're going to end up in this back and forth for quite a while until we figure it out.
Right. Yeah. But I guess everyone would like to see the scam criminal part of it diminish, if at all possible.
Oh,
So,
absolutely.
yeah, I think everybody can get on board in terms of that issue. Well, I don't want to take up any more of your time. There's lots more. I had actually a bunch of other questions to ask you, but maybe we'll talk to you again.
Do you have any rapid fire questions you want to just throw at me? Or are they
okay,
all
yeah.
kind of like...
No, I have a couple of technical questions. Like, can you describe, you'd mentioned stablecoins. How about meme coins and decentralized applications? Are those potential scam issues? What are they? And are those things that people should be aware of?
So meme coins are just cryptocurrencies that have been created by basically anyone, because anyone can create a cryptocurrency. And then they just market it. And it really has no utility or value. It is, and a meme is just like basically a cool concept or something that's kind of been in the news recently, or a fad, right? Like Trump coin was a meme coin. If you look at basically all meme coins, they follow the same pattern. They get hyped up, they increase and spike in value, and then they drop 99%. And it's usually very coordinated, and there is no insider trading when it comes to crypto.
So it's like
so
a
to speak.
pump and dump?
It's a pump and dump. It exactly is.
All of them?
Yes. All of them are all meme coins are pump and dump schemes.
So
because somebody knows, or it's been coordinated, that they're going to pump the market. People are going to see this on social media, and they're going to pile in, and then we know when we're going to cash out. And
So-
then everyone else is left holding the bag, is what they like to call it.
So pretty much everyone getting into a meme coin is hoping to get out before the dump.
Right. They're all Ponzi, basically, right? Mini Ponzis.
Okay, that's good to know.
Now, decentralized applications, I think was the other thing that you asked for.
Yeah.
These are what we call like permissionless sites. And a decentralized exchange means that there is no actual technical, there's nobody really in control. They're using what's called smart contracts. Okay? So smart contract is basically saying, if you do X, Y will occur. And so if you want to trade crypto, like you want to exchange a Bitcoin for an Ethereum or multiple Ethereum, whatever the exchange rate is, you can automatically do that without providing an ID, without talking to anybody. It just happens. You say, I'm going to send you this. And once it receives it, it's programmatically going to go out and find the best rate and then do the transaction and send it to your wallet. So decentralized applications are basically permissionless applications that will perform the same functionality as a centralized exchange like a Coinbase or Kraken or Gemini without any permission. And this is where you get into things like staking and rewards and things like that, where you can go and send your crypto, park it there, and become a liquidity provider for a pool, and then make interest off of your money. So there's a lot of really great applications for decentralization, but they're not easy to work with. They're confusing. They have a lot of steps to them, and they can actually be more expensive than using a centralized exchange.
Got it. All right, Chris, I really want to thank you for coming in today. Is there anything you'd like to leave our listeners with before we wrap up?
I think just like what we mentioned earlier, I'll just say, go slow, check the link first, and try to confirm before you move forward, and that will save you in the long run. I think it will really benefit you. And if you're not sure, ask somebody else,
Yeah.
The opportunity will still be there. And if it's legitimate, the opportunity will still be there. Avoid the urgency.
Right. Absolutely. Thank you very much for coming in today.
Thank you, James.
I learned a lot, and thank you for this Crypto Recovery Alliance. It sounds like an incredible initiative, and we look forward to talking to you in the future.
Thanks for having me, Jamie.
Pleasure.